Now let's do something about the background. Since I have this sort of black and white thing going on here, I don't really like the grayish look there. So on the background, I'm going to select that layer, go down to my Colors tool, and click Solid Color. And notice it'll pop in a new layer above it, and that's fine. And now you can just pick a color that you want to lay over the top of that original background. And I'm going to pick black. So now that's looking rather well, I think. And then you could come down if you want to, and on your footer, I'm going to select my footer. Now the footer's a gradient, so the way that I like to change the footer, and I'm just going to pick a bright color like red here to show you, is instead of replacing the color, I just like to paint over it. So select your footer, select your paintbrush tool, pick the color that you want, and then go down, and you can make the brush larger or smaller. I'm just hitting the right bracket to make it larger, left bracket to make it smaller. I'm going to make it large because since I have my footer selected, the only thing it's going to impact is the footer area. And notice when I paint over it now, it'll change that gradient in the footer. The color that I choose will actually lay over the top of the gradient. With this scheme, I may or may not want red. I may want to come in and just have a darker black gradient than the typical gray that was there. So I pick black, paint over it, and that gives me a nice deeper sort of gradient in my footer. And then of course you could even put a picture in the footer, and I'll show you how to do that in a later tutorial. But now this is looking pretty good. So I like this. I'm about done messing with it. And I'm going to leave my white area for writing and so forth. So now how do I save it and get it on my site? Once you get it like this, then go to File, Save for Web Devices, or Web and Devices, and then make sure that it's saving as a JPEG. You'll see all these slices. Don't worry about those. Just click Save. And you only need to save the images. You don't need to save images and HTML or anything. And I'm going to put it on the desktop. Now when you do that, it's going to save all your images on your computer, wherever you save them, in a folder called Images. It'll create a folder called Images, and we'll save those images in that folder. And if you look here now, we have Kubrick BG JPEG, which isn't going to be used for anything. We have the background color. We have Kubrick BG Wide, which you know what that's for. We have the footer, and we have the header. So all we do then is we take those images and go to our theme, go into the images directory, and I'm going to replace them. And the way I'm going to do it is just delete the ones that are there. So I'm deleting Kubrick BG Color, Kubrick BG Wide, Footer, and Header. And then I'm going to take all my images and drag them in to replace them. So you would just do that through your normal FTP procedures. And then go to your site and refresh and take a look. So now my site looks pretty good, but there's one or two glaring problems. One glaring and one not so glaring. The one glaring is the title and the subtitle here, which I don't want because I built a title in. Now when you created your header, if you didn't build that in, you might want to keep the title here and the tagline that's by default. But if you build yours in, then you may want to get rid of that. So if you do, then it's a simple matter of, to get rid of those, is just to open your theme, go to your theme, open the header PHP in the theme, and then look down and you'll find header image. You'll see the H1 that's echoing that name and the description. Now there's a couple things you can do here, but let me just go ahead and show you this here. If I were to just come down to those two lines, you could take out more if you want. You can either comment it out or delete it. I'm just going to delete it for simplicity's sake here, and save, and then go back and refresh, and you'll see that it's gone. Now you have a header, but the header isn't clickable. You may want to make your whole header clickable so that it brings you back to the home page. The nice thing that the title does is that it's actually clickable, so that if you're on a different area in your site, you can click on the title to get back home. Now you have nothing to click on to get back home unless you've built another bar in. So to make your header clickable, all you do is go back to the same place that I showed you in your header file, to where we deleted that code earlier, here, and just under you have your div ID header image, and then you have the closing two divs here. in there we deleted those 2 lines. You can delete those or change them, replace them with 1 line, something like this. Now I'll sort of zoom in on this and drag across so you can see what I've done here. But all I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm adding some code that says on click, go to this location and change the location. Make sure that you have the URL to where your home page of your blog. So that's the home page of my blog, or the home page of the site that I have this on, and it's actually blog 6 is where I have it. And then style, cursor, pointer, title, and then title whatever you want here. I call it home. If you put title, then that's just what the alt text that you can put there. So paste it in like that and save, or type it in your case, I guess, and then come back out and refresh, and then notice my entire header image is clickable. So now I can click on it, returns me to the home page of my blog. So very easy to do that when you remove the title to still make your header clickable. Okay, now one other thing that's not so obvious, but if you look, there's a little white line underneath the footer. And that white line is actually there in default Kubrick as well, but it's just hard to see since the area is actually sort of white or grayish. But it shows up really prominent whenever you change the background to something like black. So the way to remove that is to, let me just show you in Firebug here. I'll go to Firebug, we'll come down, and we'll inspect CSS and go to the footer. So then if we come down to our footer, you'll see where it shows padding. Footer P, padding 20 pixels. Take that 20 pixels and go down to about 18, and that will take that white line away. Okay, so that's on line 319 in your style CSS. So if I were to actually go, I haven't changed it, I just did it in my browser here, so I'll refresh and it's back. So if I would actually go to my style CSS on the site, go down to line, what was it, 319? Yeah, there we go. There's the 20 pixels. I'm going to change that to about 18 pixels. Save. Come out now, refresh, and you'll see the lines gone. Now one other thing that I'll show you that you could do if you wanted, instead of having that black background or a color background for an image, you could have a repeating background like I showed you on another site. You just need to find the repeating image that you're going to use. So for example, I have an image here called shape. As long as it's an image that will tile nicely, and I go to my images directory, and we know the background is the actual Kubrick background color JPEG. So if I were to come here, rename, I'm just going to rename it to sort of disable it. If I take my shape now and FTP it to my site, and then I'm just going to change the name of shape to Kubrick BG color JPEG, and then come back here, refresh, and now I have the repeating background there instead of a color. But in the future I'll show you a tutorial so you can get into a little bit more customization of Kubrick and do something like this, for example. This is Kubrick again, that's just has a bit more customization. Notice I have an image in the footer. The wall is an actual picture of the Great Wall of China that I took. I cut a piece of it out, opened it in Photoshop, did some editing to make it tile nicely for the wall in the background. Then the background here is just rice paper that I also made into a nice tileable background that works well if you can remove, or if you remove that white area and the gray area that is by default here on all of the Kubrick images. But it takes a little bit more to be able to do that, and I'll make a dedicated video on getting into some of this kind of customization later on.